Hey friends, welcome to a brand new chapter of Old Man Brad. Whether you are new to the show or returning for another episode, thank you so much for giving my little horror podcast a listen. If you love the show, drop me a review over on your favorite podcatcher, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, whatever it may be. I would love to hear what you think of the show. So this chapter is going to be a little bit different. A couple weeks ago, I attended HorrorHound weekend here in Cincinnati. It's one of my favorite weekends of the year. Actually, I get to attend again in September, so we're going to have two favorite weekends in the year, I guess. I love HorrorHound. I love checking out the vendors, seeing the guests, talking to people, and going to the FilmFest. One of the main things I do is I attend the FilmFest at HorrorHound. This chapter, I'm going to be kind of recapping what I saw. I have some interviews with some great guests. And I'll say, if you did not get a chance to attend HorrorHound, they do something called HorrorHound Rewind. And that's April 11th to the 13th, where you can sign up and you can watch some of the short films and feature films that played at HorrorHound. Not all of them are on there. You can watch some of the panels and other Q&A type of things that were recorded. So go check that out. If you didn't get a chance to attend, I would say go check out HorrorHound Rewind, because you can watch that from anywhere and see some of the great shorts, features, and other great things that happen at HorrorHound weekend. I love the Film Fest at HorrorHound weekend. Zoe does a fantastic job curating the films that play there. So I'm going to kind of go day to day here and talk about a few of the films that I saw, some that I missed. I missed a few blocks of movies, unfortunately. There's just not enough time in the day to go see everything. But I'm going to go through some of the stuff that I watched, what I did on days, and then in between here and there, I'm going to pop in some interviews. I have interviews with Justin from Scream Team Releasing. I have an interview with Caden, who has a short film called Dead Men Ride Again. Whitney and Patrick for their short film, The Last Butterfly. And I talked to Justin and Anthea. They are a team behind the feature film Sheryl, but we will kind of cut those in between as I'm talking. It kicked off on Friday, and usually on Friday I kind of hit the floor first, but this time I went to watch the short film block, because there were a couple shorts in this first block I was excited to see, called the Eerie AF block. Had Rainy Season, Grampy, Carrots for Conrad, and Homecoming. All four of them were great. All very different, similar but very different. Rainy Season was a fun little short film about this couple going to this cabin out in the middle of nowhere, and it just kind of twists and turns along the way. You know, have the locals and shit happens, and it was pretty funny and it was just good. All four of these films were really good, and I highly recommend, like, if you love short film, kind of seeking these ones out. So Rainy Season, Grampy was the second one. Talk about creepy. This guy, it's kind of like a date, and he's talking about his grandpa who passed away, but then he stuffed him and he's up in his room. So Grampy always watches over him, and he's just staring all creepily at you. And it was just, again, it was funny and just a blast to watch. Next up, Carrots for Conrad, another hilarious one where this kind of douchebag, he doesn't want to like give anyone money, and this homeless man puts a curse on him, and he slowly turns into a carrot. And it's actually, the transformation and everything happening to him is really funny. Go seek out Carrots for Conrad. And the last one, not as funny, a little more serious, Homecoming, an alien abduction. Aliens take this woman's child, and then they come back later. It's a little darker, much more sci-fi, obviously, but it is a much darker short, still very enjoyable. 4 short films to kick off my weekend that you should definitely seek out if you love shorts: Rainy Season, Grampy, Carrots for Conrad, and Homecoming. After that, I walked the floor. I'm not usually a autograph type person. I don't always rush to guests to get autographs or pictures or anything like that. I will talk to guests. Like, I like kind of going up to guests. If they don't have a line and there's someone I want to meet, I'll go talk to them or just go kind of BS with them. But I did get one autograph. Richard Band was there. Last year, I got Charles Band's autograph. Full Moon Features are some of my favorite films. So I was excited to meet Charles last year. This year, Richard was there, and I got his autograph on my Reanimator vinyl. Got to talk to him for like 20-ish minutes. He was telling me about some films that he has scored recently. Prime Evils is a movie that is coming out soon that I'm pretty excited to see, and he was telling me about the score for that. And then walking the floor, so many great vendors like Synapse Films, Severin Films, Troma's there. Their booth is always, I feel like, the most fun. They just kind of have a party at the Troma booth. Got another picture with Lloyd Kaufman. I got to meet Gringo Fantastico, who is a super, super cool guy. And I got to meet Ricky Glore in person for the first time. He and I did an interview with Ricky, I think it was last year sometime, about his films, and he has a new one coming out called Sweetmeats. He hadn't started filming it yet when I talked to him, but it is now going to be a Troma release, and he was at the Troma booth, so I got to talk to him, and it's just a blast, just so much fun walking around. And then Scream Team releasing always has a lot of great movies that I love, like Heebie Jeebie TV, which I interviewed the minds behind that just not too many months ago. Pumpkin Man, another interview I had with the director Ryan Sheets and Janae Muchmore, the writer. They've released many films that I've seen at HorrorHound. I picked up a couple films from them, an anthology called Cryptids that stars Joe Bob Briggs as a radio announcer, and people are calling in with stories about these cryptids, like here in Loveland. We have the Loveland Frogman, and there are many others. I chatted with Justin Seaman, who's one of the people behind Scream Team releasing, and he produced, directed so many films, including The Barn. He's done segments and produced 1031, or the 1031 films, which I have talked about previously, and Cryptids is the new one that just came out. Let's jump into my interview with Justin, and then we'll continue on the other side. Hey, everybody. I am here with Justin from Scream Team Releasing. How was the weekend for you guys?
This was a fantastic show. It's always great here at HorrorHound, but this has been, since the expansion here, it's been phenomenal. Guests have been great. The fans have been great. I couldn't ask for a better show.
And you yourself have been behind some of Scream Team's movies, such as The Barn, 1031, newest release, Cryptids. Can you tell me a little bit about some of your titles that you guys have?
Yeah, so, we specialize in a lot of retro slashers, specifically Halloween. I have a soft spot for Halloween. So, we're always looking for titles that kind of, scratch that itch. But, really anything that's fun. Specifically, we like that kind of stuff, and it's got to be, good, but it's got to have heart. Doesn't matter the budget as long as it's, made by passionate filmmakers. We don't care if it's a $5,000 movie or a $100,000 movie. We just want to make sure that when you're watching it, you have a good time. We have movies that range from, completely silly to really dark and gruesome. But there's something here for everybody. Some of the most recent films that came out was Heebie Jeebie TV. We tell people, if you're into like WNUF Halloween Special or Pee Wee's Playhouse, it's kind of like that, but completely Halloween and just jacked up to 100. And especially if you're into Rick and Morty, it's almost like if Rick and Morty's interdimensional cable. So that one's is completely fun. But like you mentioned, Cryptids is one of the newest ones, and I was a part of that as a executive producer and one of the segment directors. Stars Joe Bob Briggs, and if you like Cryptids, you got 7 of them in there, different creatures, all practical effects, and then gratuitous Joe Bob Briggs. So that's always great. So that one's a blast. But yeah, there's all kinds of fun things here, and I could recommend just about anything for anyone here, depending on what your taste is.
Any titles that you can talk about that you guys have like people should look out for coming in the future?
Yeah, so we actually have about 7 on the roster for this year. The next two that are coming up in about the next 2 months, there's a remake of Spider Baby.
Okay.
From I think it was 1967. That's coming up here in probably about a month or so. We'll be releasing, and then following that is a vacation horror anthology called Worst Laid Plans. So that's the next two coming up on a release that we can talk about.
Okay.
After that,
All right.
there's a lot of more, but those ones we just can't talk about yet. Yeah,
that's fair. Well, thank you so much, Justin, for talking to me. Where can people follow and watch, for anything Scream Team?
So you can go directly to the website at screamteamreleasing.com, or you can follow us on Facebook at Scream Team Releasing, at Instagram at Scream Team Releasing, and on Twitter as well, Scream Team Releasing. So everything Scream Team Releasing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for chatting with me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Again, I want to thank Justin for chatting with me. I think he and I sat there and just talked indie horror films for quite a while. It was a good time. That's the thing about HorrorHound, or I've never been to other horror conventions, but I've heard from people how it is. It's just, you're part of the family. Everybody is there for a common purpose. You're just there for your love of horror movies. Every single person I have ever met or ever talked to at HorrorHound has been amazing. I met a lot of great new friends over the weekend, podcasters. I cannot wait to connect and do a few things with them. Let's jump back to the FilmFest. So that would pretty much wrapped up my Friday. I only did the one block. I walked the floor. I talked to a few people and bought a few things because that's what you do when you're there. You spend money. Saturday, I came back, and first thing I started with a shorts block again called Sacred Scares. And it had, so in the short block, The Spirit Became Flesh, Faces, Justice Unleashed, and Juggernaut. So we start off, all of these were great in their own, way. Spirit Becomes Flesh, kind of a culty, I don't want to say backwoods, but kind of backwoods, kind of crazy, dark story that was really well done. Faces, or El Semblante. This is one that took place during the Spanish Inquisition, and there's an inquisitor with this torture device trying to basically show pure fear and bring out the devil. This short film was dark, and it led to this ending that was kind of a downer. So by the time you got to the end, you're just like, oh man, I need I need something happy. And then we had Justice Unleashed. It was a teenage group here in Ohio about this kind of a cult that kidnaps dogs. And it was a super fun little short film, kind of enjoyable. After Faces kind of brought me down, this kind of brought me up a little bit. And then we ended with Juggernaut, which was fucking beautiful. The cinematography and the imagery in this film were so stunning. This film just looked amazing. I don't know what kind of budget they had for Juggernaut, but it felt like it was on a grand scale. It had an epic feel to it. It was a story of this man, this knight, who was taking a body to kind of like a tomb almost, and resurrected this darkness to fight. And oh my gosh, this movie just looked so good. Again, all four of these, I would say, if you love short films, go check them out. Spirit Became Flesh, Faces, Justice Unleashed, and Juggernaut. Juggernaut is one that I highly recommend checking out because it just looked so good. I stayed for the block right after that called The Horror of Heartbreak, and it had the short film No Slasher Here and then the feature film Sheryl. No Slasher Here was a fun little twist on a home invasion kind of slasher film. I don't want to give anything away on it because it has this nice little twist to it that is really good, really well done, a little short, and it played well with Sheryl. Sheryl is one to watch for. Sheryl was just a fun, twisted, revenge movie of this woman who is dumped by her serial killer boyfriend and kind of starts her own little thing because her boyfriend said she's not pretty enough, and so she starts killing and taking different pieces of these women to kind of, make her own. I'm going to kill the person with the best nose, with the best lips, with the best. And it's really funny. And pieces of it kind of give you that feel of American Psycho, kind of, if you've ever seen the movie The Stylist. It's bloody, it's gory, it's so funny, and just such a blast. I absolutely loved Sheryl and had so much fun with this movie. And we'll tell people, definitely watch for Sheryl, because this is a film that you just need to see, because it's just a fun film. So I had the chance to talk to director Justin Best and the star of the movie. She played Sheryl in the movie, Anthea Neary Best. So let's go into that interview right now, and I'll see you on the other side. Hey, everybody. I am here with Justin and Anthea. We're going to talk about their feature film, Sheryl, which just played here at HorrorHound. How was your weekend with the film?
It's been so fun. It's been just so great. Everyone here at HorrorHound has been so kind and friendly and welcoming. This is our first time at HorrorHound. This is our first horror feature. So I was really excited to be welcomed into the horror community. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, everyone has been so welcoming, and if you don't know something, they will lovely chance to explain to you anything you have, any questions about horror or filmmaking in general. So it's great.
How was it showing your film at a crowd here in HorrorHound? It seemed like I went to the screening. It was pretty well received. Everybody seemed to love it. I loved it.
Yeah.
Like how was that, I guess, energy when you were at the screening?
Oh, the energy for our film was great. It was so fun. Like, people were laughing, people were cheering, people were and even some people told me they cried, which I never expected. They cried, like they just really were touched by the story. And so it was amazing, to have that reception here, and especially among people who love horror and really know horror and run deep with horror. It was like nice to be to get a good reception from that crowd.
I thought, okay, when we made the film, I read the script and such, and you're like, yeah, okay, there's gonna be blood, and it's funny. And then I was like, so you think you people will gasp or react to like certain kills or blood and things like that, and then the jokes and stuff like that. But when people came up to us after, I'm just bumping off of what he said, when they were crying, and I was like, you can cry in horror? Like, is that an emotion that we allow and accept? And I was like, I didn't know. And I was like, they just connected it and connected with the film in a way that I haven't. Like, I didn't understand that would be an emotion that would come from our film. But that's the one thing that's really great, because after, as filmmakers and actors and all that things, you like, once you give it to the audience, it's theirs.
Yeah.
It's no longer yours. And that's like the fun and scary thing part of it, because you're like, oh my God, I hope they like it. And then when they gave us that reaction and says, I got all the feels, we won. Like, that is amazing. You're like, this is it. This is what we needed. You connected to our film, and that's it. We're done. Yeah.
I think that's a really neat thing about horror is that, like, some people come because they want to be really scared, and some people come because they want to laugh. And then some people told us, like, it's like a therapeutic for them. Yes. Like, they can work through their own things that they're working through. And so just to see all of that in the horror community is just really wonderful.
And this is your first feature. You've done shorts before that. How is that transition going from short films to, full-fledged feature films?
Yeah, that's a great question. I tried to think. We shot for 14 days. So in my brain, I was like, it's just like 14 shorts in a row. But, certainly the nice thing about shorts is that they're short, and like, that you can you turn it around relatively quickly. We've been working on the feature for about 5 years, to get it to this point. And so, just a lot of, we had the pandemic during that time. So, strike and everything, like a lot of starts and stops. And just, I think one big thing about the feature is like, we just had to keep going.
Yeah.
We just try to keep moving as best as we could. Certainly a lot of people involved and a lot of great people who come on our team. But in the end, it's shorts are fun, but the feature is really rewarding to see like to be able to tell the whole story.
And you get to spend time with your cast and crew a little bit longer.
Yeah.
If you love them, it's great. If you don't, but it becomes a family after. Like even with the short turnaround of 14 days, it's like you spend long hours together. You have high pressure and all the things that turn around or could go wrong or go right. And the success of it going around in film festivals and such, and people resonating with it, everyone can kind of like enjoy it together. Mm-hmm. So it becomes like a family. So it's been great.
So what's the future for Sheryl after HorrorHound? Is there going to be more festivals or?
Yeah. Our next stop, we're going to be in Phoenix, at the Phoenix Film Festival and International Sci-Fi and Horror Festival. We're going to be there in April.
Okay.
We got 3 showings. And then we're going to be in the virtual section of PanicFest.
And where can people follow along for Sheryl to kind of see where they can see it, when it could be released potentially in the future?
We're all social medias at Sheryl the Movie. That's Sheryl with an S, SHERYL the Movie. Or also at SherylTheMovie.com. So you can sign up for our mailing list. We'll keep you updated, and follow us on socials. We keep you updated there as well.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. And I'm going to tell everybody, go see this movie. It's fun. It's funny. It's bloody. It's all the things. It's all the things.
It's all the things. We accept. Thank you.
I want to thank Justin and Anthea for talking to me again. And everybody that I talked to, who I interviewed, I will have their links in the description in the episode. So make sure you follow so you can follow along to, go check out Scream Team Releasing. Go follow Sheryl and what they have going on. Follow their Instagram to kind of get updates on what's next for them. So Saturday night was a blast because it ends with a party and I got to have fun. It was just a good night hanging out with horror friends, and you get to see some people out there. Sunday is always the last day. You're always bummed. You're like, oh, it's the last day. HorrorHound's over, unfortunately, but there's still films to be seen. There was a block that I did not make it to. I got in a little late, but I watched the movies after the fact. They sent me links and I interviewed them. And that was for the apocalyptic anthology block. And you had Dead Men Ride Again, Red Velvet, which I did not see, and then The Last Butterflies. Dead Men Ride Again and The Last Butterflies I did watch after HorrorHound. And I have interviews with those filmmakers here. Dead Men Ride Again was so much fun. It was a zombie Western that was just funny, really, really funny. And I liked the mesh of genres where you had the zombies with a Western. I always love a good Western, but this had quick-witted humor to it, and it was just really fun, and I really enjoyed it. Definitely watch for that one. It should be hitting online sometime later this year. Let's move into my interview with Caden, where we talk Dead Men Ride Again, HorrorHound, and everything else. Hey, I am here with the co-writer and director of Dead Men Ride Again, Caden Butera. How you doing today?
Doing pretty good, man. Thanks for having me.
I know you and I we talked quite a bit at HorrorHound, but we didn't really get to connect and do this till now after the fact. How was your weekend at HorrorHound?
It was honestly fantastic. This was the first time I'd ever attended, so it was really exciting to see what it was all about. I had heard that everyone kind of said, "Oh, HorrorHound is where you go and like connect with lots of cool people and filmmakers," and I kind of hear that about every place, But this place in particular was like tailor-made to make personal connections. At least that's how I felt. I really got to meet a lot of cool people who weren't just, flashing you a cheap smile. They really like cared about what your project was, and then vice versa. I cared about theirs. So it was just a lot of fun meeting cool people. That was my main takeaway.
Had Dead Men Ride Again, has it gone to any other festivals or anything like that prior to this?
So this was the world premiere of our short.
Okay.
So it had never played in front of a public audience before. So it was exciting to see it play in front of people who weren't like my mom and best friend, you know?
And how did that go? I missed the screening. You know, I watched it after the fact, but how did that screening go?
Oh, everyone walked out. It was just like no one liked it, and
everyone hated
some
it.
Some sandwiches got thrown at the screen, but no, it actually. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but I'd like to think it went really, really well. We had people because it's comedic, so we had like laughs where there were supposed to be laughs, and then there were. It looked like it was just like a really good crowd, and we got a relatively full house in our screener room, and people walked away cheering afterwards. So it was a great time.
And as you mentioned, it was very comedic. This short it's comedic. You have the zombie element, and you co-wrote this with the star of the short, Falk Henschel. How did you come across like you guys connecting in doing this project?
Yeah. So basically, like the inception of this project was I was driving to Spokane Comic-Con. I live in Coeur d'Alene, so Spokane's like a 30-minute drive, Spokane, Washington. And I was just in the car with my brother and my buddy, and we were just talking about genre mashing. It's like, what haven't we seen yet? Oh, have we seen like Mobsters in Space? Oh, that's kind of Total Recall. Like we're just kind of going down the list, and then we landed on zombie western, and it's like, I don't think I've seen that before. That really got us all excited. So we were driving in the car to Spokane Comic-Con as a guest, and then our table was just across a guy named Falk Henschel, who people might know from the Arrowverse DC shows as Hawkman. He was in Night and Day. He was in Robert Zemeckis' Welcome to Marwen. Really talented dude. And he was just casually sitting across from us and came up to our table and started kind of like perusing around. And we ended up making like a really personal connection with him because he's a terrific guy. And long story short, we kept in touch afterwards. And then the pandemic hit. As I'm sure everyone knows, like everyone in Hollywood's gigs were just being canceled left and right. And so Falk called me up and was like, hey, dude, do you want to do something? And I was like, well, as a matter of fact, I vaguely came up with an idea on the drive to the con I met you at. What are your thoughts on maybe doing a zombie Western? And he like lit up and was like, let's do it, man. So we kind of together fleshed out what an actual story of that would be, and then the rest is history.
Was there always that comedic element to it when you originally came up with the idea?
Good question. No. It was actually, I mean, it's so funny how ideas work. For better or worse, you come up with an idea that really excites you, and then it inevitably transforms into something else. Sometimes that something else is better, sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's just different. And in this particular case, the only idea I had was kind of this genre mesh. And then as I started imagining what could happen in the story, because the genre mesh isn't a story, it's just two genres. You kind of have to like, what would this actually be about? And we started going the kind of like obvious way, which would have been good too, where it was like a lone gunslinger, Clint Eastwood style, just starts like in a gritty world shooting up zombies in the Wild West. And then we're like, I think what makes these two genres fun is if you add a funness to it, like, Pirates of the Caribbean or like the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies. Like, I really like the vibe of like scary meets kind of this lighthearted adventure romp. And so as we proceeded through the script writing process, we started injecting more comedy and more of that kind of swashbuckling vibes to it, which I think made it a more fun piece, in my opinion.
I had a blast with it. I was very it was just enjoyable. It's one of those things like when it was over, I was like, I want more. I don't want this to end right now.
Good. I hope that we left people wanting more and not, oh, geez, finally it's over. Because I've made some of those too. Trust me. The farther back you go on my YouTube channel, it's like, wow, you sure made a 2-minute short into 12, didn't you?
you mentioned about coming up with the, around the pandemic. Was this shot kind of around that time where it's like, we can only have a few people together. Let's kind of work around this to kind of get
exactly. It was shot in the middle of the pandemic as well, and it was during a unique time where, again, as everyone knows, like, people were just kind of like itching to do something, and we kind of had this cabin fever. And so, while being safe and making sure everyone was tested and wearing masks, etc., we kind of banded together with a bunch of volunteers and family friends and literally built a makeshift Western town from scratch to shoot this short. So basically, all these people who, like, if you weren't an essential worker, you were kind of, sitting on your butt waiting to do something. And I was like, hey, do you want to help maybe like swing a hammer and put up some scrap wood for this Western town? And it was a really fun project where everyone just kind of came together, just from the kindness of their heart, really, which is such a luxury in a world where it's so expensive to put ideas onto screen. In the indie world, sometimes if you're and you can exhaust favors, but if you surround yourself with really good people and treat people right, you'd be surprised who can volunteer themselves without even having to ask. So I cashed in a lot of favors that I don't plan on cashing in again, but we had people coming together for next to nothing to bring this to light. So it was such a blast getting to build that Western town and then shoot it all in the pandemic, where everyone just wanted to have something to bring them together.
Do you have any plans for Dead Men Ride Again for, more adventures, maybe a full feature or anything with it?
As a matter of fact, you're good. You're good with these questions, man. You should run a podcast.
I should.
Yes. The fantasy would be to flesh this out into a feature, and this short is kind of a proof of concept for what will hopefully be a longer form version of the story. And so, like I said, we're in the indie realm, so the more horses and Western towns you start throwing at a script, the more the dollar signs start adding up. So we have to, what you can do in a 15-minute short is one thing, and then stretching that out in 2 hours is another. So it is going to be kind of a fun challenge to dive deep into the things we can do with the budget we have. For instance, we might not be able to blow up an entire town in a spectacular explosion, but we can hopefully get into the nitty gritty of the characters. So, and with the occasional action spice and a little action beat here, maybe we can blow up a carriage, so it's a fun challenge working with limitations, and I think limitations actually can lend itself to the best idea. That you're painted into a box, it oddly kind of sparks inspiration that you wouldn't have had if anything was possible.
I want to tell people to watch for Dead Men Ride Again, because I had a blast with it, and hopefully we get to see more in the future. Where can people kind of follow along with you in any projects you have coming out?
For starters, the Dead Men Ride Again trailer is out. The short is still making the festival circuits. Like I said, HorrorHound was the first time it got to play anywhere. And there's a few more places it's going to stop before I get to just release it online. But right now, the trailer is online on my YouTube channel, which is just my first and last name, Caden Butera. And that's where I post a lot of my kind of passion project stuff, and also I post updates everywhere on my social media. So I have my production studio Instagram handle is Paradox Studios, and again, my Instagram handle is just Caden Butera.
Any projects that you're working on right now that you can let people know about?
As a matter of fact, I totally do. Thanks for teeing me up for that one. Most recently, I've been working on a feature film that is a sci-fi thriller called Recollection. And so that one's been in the works for a while. I've been working on that one for literally years now. And we shot it about a little over a year ago now. And it also stars Falk Henschel as one of the leads, and in a completely different role. Like in Dead Men Ride Again, he's this kind of silly, long, curly-haired postman. In this, he's a very, very different, serious, brooding guy. But that short film, that feature film, which will be a full just under 2 hours, is going to be aiming at the festival circuit in the second half of this year. So that one you can follow on recollection_movie on Instagram, as well as the Facebook page Recollection Film. And it's basically my biggest passion project I've ever made. And I'm terrified to put it out there because it's like, I put everything I got at it. So if people don't like it, it's like, this is all I got.
Okay.
It'll be a fun, humbling experience to finally have people take a look at what happens when you give me 2 hours of your time instead of 15. And I'm so excited, but terrified to get people to watch it. But more than anything, I'm excited.
Caden, I want to thank you so much for, connecting with me after the weekend and wish you the best of luck with not only Dead Men Ride Again, but Recollection when it comes out.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And thanks for reaching out. It was great getting to chat with you in person. And thanks for actually following up and having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it.
I want to thank Caden again, chatting with me, and watch for Dead Men Ride Again coming out. Watch for his feature film Recollection coming out sometime this year. I always love a good sci-fi story, so I'll be excited to check that one out when it comes. So like I said, I didn't get to see Red Velvet. I'll probably look up that one later to find and watch. But I did watch The Last Butterflies. It sent me a screener link for that. It was a different side of the apocalypse compared to Dead Men Ride Again. This one was a little more serious, a little more, it kind of led you up to this ending where, again, you get to the end and you're like, oh, I need something happy after this. Very well crafted, very well done, a very enjoyable watch. And hearing the story behind it, I talked to Whitney, who was the writer and star of The Last Butterflies, and Patrick, who was the director. So let's move into my interview with them. See you at the end. I am here with the director and then the writer and star of The Last Butterflies, Patrick Ray and Whitney Wagman Wood. How are you both doing today?
Great.
Doing all right.
Good so far.
So far, so good. So tell me about your time at HorrorHound. How was your HorrorHound weekend?
So this is my first time at HorrorHound. I really enjoyed it. It was a little overwhelming. There was a lot to do.
There's a lot.
Yeah. I don't know what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting that. I feel like I was running around a lot. I got to see a fair amount of the films, sit in a couple panels, and then I walked through the vendor area and bought a few things. It was fun. I had a blast. I got to catch part of the costume contest. I'm bummed I didn't get to see more of it because those costumes were phenomenal. Unbelievable how much time and energy people put into the costumes. It was very impressive. But yeah, I had a really good experience, and I will probably go again in the future, I have no doubt.
And an award for writing, a HorrorHound award for writing for The Last Butterflies.
Yes, we did receive an award for The Last Butterflies, and that was definitely the cherry on top of the cake for the weekend. That was awesome.
And Patrick, for you?
This was my fourth time at HorrorHound. So
How have we never connected until now?
I don't know. I screened my feature, They Wait in the Dark, there 2 years ago. So I've screened there many times at HorrorHound, and it seems to grow every time I go. In fact, the last time I actually attended, because I wasn't there for when my feature showed, my 6-year-old was a baby, so I literally had her strapped to me like in a backpack. So she was much easier to keep track of when I was there the last time. But yeah, no, it was great. But yeah, it just gets bigger and bigger every time I'm there, and the festival also gets bigger, which is excellent.
So The Last Butterflies, tell me, how did the screening for that is one of the panels, the screenings that I missed, but thankfully you guys let me watch it before we got to talk, and I thank you for that. How did the screening for that go? It seemed like a pretty good room because I got in there right at the end.
I feel like it went pretty well. I mean, we had a fair amount of attendance, and a lot of people had really good questions at the end during the Q&A. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of people came up to us afterwards and said we made them cry. So that's always a victory.
That was our goal. That was entirely our goal from the beginning. But it was good. It was a good block of shorts because they all dealt with the apocalypse in a different way. There was one that was comedic and it was more of like a zombie Western. And then there was one that was in a hotel that dealt with like a Chernobyl sort of crisis. And then our film, which is more along the lines of a climate disaster and a survival film. So it was a really good group of short films. And like she said, there were a lot of good questions that the audience had and stuff that I didn't expect. So that was rewarding.
Now, tell me a little about Last Butterflies. What made you, go with the story you went, the, kind of a end of times, end of the world survival story?
So I wrote the story, and it came directly from a series of nightmares that I had back in 2019. So I spent about a week not sleeping. And
okay.
That's actually the reason that the film is ordered the way it is, because excluding the intro with the news clips, everything after that was almost verbatim what happened in my nightmares. And so the being out of order is also something that I was experiencing. Like, I had these nightmares for about 4 nights in a row, but the story was not linear. And so I didn't write it linear either.
And Patrick, how did you come to the project?
Well, it was a couple of things. Like one of my short films was playing was it the Horrible Imaginings Film Festival? Yeah. And Whitney saw the film and she went to school in Kansas City, I think. And was it Avila? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Avila.
And she saw a former classmate was in my film. So we connected over social media and started talking. And then I started sending her more of my films. And then she saw my feature, They Wait in the Dark. And so we just stayed connected. And so when the time came to find a director for this project, she reached out to me. So, and I like the script a lot. I love the mother-daughter relationship about survival. I could relate to that based on the fact that I chase my daughters around all the time. But yeah, no, I found the script to be very interesting. And what I liked about it was a survival story that didn't involve, it was an apocalypse story that didn't involve zombies or a virus. It entirely deals with ecological issues that we are actually facing at this point. So I found that to be interesting and scary. And, when this film played at a HorrorHound, at first I was kind of like, well, it's not really your typical horror film, but it has horror elements to it that I think are almost more disturbing than something that would be supernatural. So I think that's why the film has been appealing to the horror audience.
It's definitely not your slasher or, like you said, zombies or anything like that. It's
human nature, which I think is almost more terrifying.
Different kind of monster for sure.
Yeah.
I've had film programmers tell me that basically I took my nightmares and I gave them to other people. So thanks a lot for that. I so appreciate it.
But not on set, Whitney. We had so much fun making this movie, despite it being very disturbing. It was a very jovial set and very, very organized, and the crew was fantastic. So I was very thankful for that because we were freezing outside when we were filming this movie. But it was a good time.
And about how long was your shoot for this?
It was 6 days of principal, and then we had a day of pickups. So
okay.
Yeah, and then there was a second unit for the news stuff. So like 7.5 days, really.
Right.
Is there any, like, you've done feature films before. How is working for you, Patrick, on a short film? How is that process different than, a full-fledged feature?
It's not that different. I would say that like my approach is very similar. I have a certain amount of pages and shots that I think we can achieve per day. So I schedule accordingly. For me, like a short film is more of a sprint than a marathon. This film was somewhere in the middle because it's a kind of a longer short film. So, but I always tell people like a feature can take several years, in terms of just getting it financed, getting it shot, getting it distributed. And a short film, you have a shorter amount of time to get the film in the can. You're not asking people to take 2-3 weeks of their lives to film the movie. So it's a little different in that regard, but from a directing standpoint, I approached them all the same.
Okay.
This one had a really much shorter amount of time too, because I got the wild hair to do this like in June of 2022. And then I found out that Cooper had like a single free week to shoot because that man is insanely busy doing cons, and he was still on The Walking Dead at the time. They were just wrapping that up.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, oh, okay, he can shoot in November. So we have to figure out how to fundraise between June and actually before November. I think we had to have all our funds by end of September at latest. So it was pretty breakneck, the pre-production and the fundraising element of doing this short.
And then we, obviously we had to get all the locations situated and the crew. And luckily in Kansas City, November isn't one of the busiest times of year. So we were able to get the crew that we needed to shoot. And we shot the majority of the film in Mound City, Kansas, which is about an hour and a half south of Kansas City. And so we shot the majority of that there, and then we did a couple days in Kansas City.
And Whitney, for you this came from a dream. You wrote it, and you're starring in it. As you were filming this, was there like kind of I don't want to say a PTSD, but kind of like as you're going through this story of nightmares that you've already lived through, and you're doing it again.
Kind of visceral. I absolutely had some moments where it felt like the deja vu experience, just because like I had dreamed some variation of it, which tells you like the communication was really good. If something that I experienced in a dream could be manufactured in the way we're producing and shooting it. And I feel like we accomplished that a couple times over. It was creepy in its own way, because like when you get that sense of deja vu, it kind of weirds you out. But also it was really satisfying in another way to be like, I don't know, like sometimes I have those deja vu moments and it's proof to me that it's like, okay, this is the right thing. This is like where I'm in the right place at the right time in my universe, So yes, I don't know if it's PTSD, but definitely some deja vu and some catharsis of releasing this character that has kind of haunted me for a couple years.
Was it a bit of a release of like, okay, this is out now. Now I can have some different nightmares and write about those.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it's been. And we were talking to someone else at HorrorHound, and I said to some degree, it's been very empowering to take what was a nightmare, create art with it, and put it out into the world, because I feel like I'm being proactive about the things that scare me.
Cooper Andrews co-starred with you, who you said was in Walking Dead. Had to have been a bit of a change for him to be, he's in a wholly different post-apocalyptic world with the zombies, and now it's more of a human story. How was his change when he came in and you guys were working together?
Well, I mean, so the grounding for the characters is still the same. I would say both with Jerry and with Dad, like those characters are just all heart, they would do anything they could for the people they love. And really, from my experience with Walking Dead, the zombies are scary, but honestly, the humans are scarier a lot of times. And same thing with butterflies.
It's true.
We're the bigger monsters than the monsters. So, I think the grounding is still kind of the same. It's what is precious to you, and what are you fighting for?
Last Butterflies, what is kind of the future of it? You're still more festivals along the way, or?
So we are lined up to be getting replies up through the end of September, with some of our final screenings happening mid-October.
Okay.
And my hope, if I'm going to put my fondest hope out there into the universe, I've been trying to talk to as many people as possible who might be interested in turning this into a short-run episodic. All of the characters have much deeper stories and arcs. Even the ones that you only get to see for just a little bit, there's more to them. So I'd love for each of them to get their own story to share.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there was ever an expanded, like a feature or something like that, but
indeed there is.
And I want to thank both of you for, taking your time to chat with me. What are, besides The Last Butterflies, which, if it's playing at a convention, you go check it out. What other stuff do you guys have in the works that you can talk about? If you can, I know some people can't always talk about their projects.
I have actually couple features in post right now. I directed a found footage feature last year that's in post called The Night Is Young, which I would best describe as like a date that goes wrong and might turn into a vampire movie at that point, but done like a found footage style. And then I have a film called Super Happy Fun Clown, where the short film is currently on the festival circuit. It's playing at Panic Fest this week, and also played at Nightmares Film Festival in Columbus, Ohio. But we have a feature film version that we've been filming, and we have 4 more days of principal photography, which is happening in a couple weeks. We had to wait for it to be warm to shoot the remainder of the film. So that's what's on the agenda for me right now. And then, of course, just promoting the films that are out there, currently.
And Whitney, what about you?
Yeah, as for me, obviously doing lots of touring around with Butterflies, going to film festivals and seeing what that's like. This is my first time really doing like the film festival circuit, because although I've acted in other people's films, like this is my baby. So I'm attending far more film festivals than I ever had in my life. And I am signed on for producer and lead villain in a feature called Sojourn, which is it's a historic piece taking place around the end of the Civil War, but it is also a thriller with some horror elements in there. So, and that is about as much as I can say so far.
Well, thank you guys again, and hopefully, Patrick, if you make it back to HorrorHound, we'll try to connect next time.
I probably will. I mean, hopefully I'm not chasing my 6-year-old around the whole time, but yes, I will be back.
Yes, thank you both so much for chatting with me, and hopefully we cross paths again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Again, thank you to Whitney and Patrick for chatting with me. Go seek out The Last Butterflies, and like I said, I will have links to everybody's kind of social media, where you could watch it if it is available, or things like that, to kind of follow along for these movies to see when they come out, because a lot of these, especially short films, they're worth checking out. And Sheryl was so good. So the last movie that I watched from my weekend was a film called Compression. This movie swept the HorrorHound award ceremony. It won Best Feature, Best Actors in the Film, Best, it won all of it. Even the Judge's Choice, it won so many. So I went to the FilmFest Awards, were Sunday morning before all these other blocks started. Seeing all that, and then I went to see Compression that kind of swept. Compression is a movie that feels like it's almost 2 movies in one. You kind of get this relationship drama mixed with this crazy, weird drug trip that kind of leads up to this ending. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to talk to the writer-director Jacob Belinsky and the star Emily Derchholz. They were both there. I talked to them at the beginning of the weekend, kind of kicking it off. We chatted about their film, but then they had this big ending to the weekend, and unfortunately I did not get a chance to connect with them in order to bring you an interview for this. This is a movie that kind of takes you through a range of, like I said, slasher, it's relationship drama, it's a drug trip, it's isolation, it's got home invasion, it has all the things all in one movie. It was just kind of a wild ride. Let's just say that, wild ride. But that's Compression. That ended HorrorHound weekend. HorrorHound weekend was over, unfortunately. I can't wait to go back. Like I told you before, if you are not in the area and you want to check out, some of the stuff that HorrorHound has to offer, go check out HorrorHound Rewind, April 11th to the 13th. Online, you can watch some of the shorts. Some of these shorts that I mentioned could be playing in HorrorHound Rewind. Some of the features could also be, but they'll have panels of the Q&As, costume contests. I go back to the Rewind because there are some of the shorts and some of the other things that I didn't get a chance to see that do play there. So, and then in September 13th to the 15th, HorrorHound is back in Cincinnati. So I will be back chatting with filmmakers, chatting with other people, and just having a good time. So there you go. That will do it for my HorrorHound March 2024 recap. And before I head out, there is one movie that you can watch at home right now that I recently rented. It is called Easter Bloody Easter. And I'm going to tell you, it's not a good movie. It is just stupid, cheesy fun is what it is. This small town that these little Easter bunnies come to and start killing people, and then there's a giant like jackalope. And for those that don't know what a jackalope is, it is a rabbit with antelope antlers. So I grew up in Wyoming, close to the town Douglas, Wyoming. That is the home of the jackalope. They have a giant jackalope statue as you drive into town, and they have jackalope festivals and jackalope everything there. So seeing the jackalope on screen, even though it is a monstrous killing machine, was so much fun. This movie is dumb, really dumb. There are multiple times that they break into song or music starts playing and it becomes almost like a music video. Some of the kills were pretty good, not great, but pretty good. And it's just, like I said, cheesy, absolutely cheesy. But I had fun with the film and would recommend, if you just want something silly to put on, check out Easter, Bloody Easter. If you're in the Cincinnati area, make sure you come out to Frightful Fridays. It happens on the third Friday of the month. I host a horror screening at the Esquire. And for April, we are watching Brain Scan, starring Edward Furlong from 1994. It's its 30th anniversary, which is crazy to me. This is a movie that failed at the box office, but it became kind of a big cult hit later on. I'm excited to host a screening of this at the Esquire. So come out April 19th, 10 p.m. Let's watch a movie together. That will do it for another chapter of Old Man Brad. Just subscribe to the show and you'll never miss any episodes. I'll be back soon with a brand new chapter. Just snuggle up in that blanket, turn off the lights, because it's okay to be scared. We'll talk to you later, everybody.